The views and opinions expressed by the guests and contributors on Conklin and Company are not necessarily those of 13 ABC. Now, Conklin and Company continues with Take 3, commentary and analysis from our panel of political contributors.
Welcome back, everyone. Take 3 now continues. London Mitchell from Cumulus Radio and Tom Troy, politics writer for the Toledo Blade, joining us. Guys, let's get right to the Toledo budget. Got to have a balanced budget by March 31st. And much of the budget that Mike Collins presented was former Mayor Bell's budget, but with some changes.
Right.
And your thoughts, and the fact that now money for some of these pools, too, apparently is in there, coming from the Police Athletic League. Tom Troy?
Well, the budget that was left for Collins from Bell didn't have any money for pools. And so Collins initially endorsed the idea of not being able to fund pools, but the backlash was so immediate that within a couple of hours he flipped and said, we'll find money for pools. Now I think they're talking about 3 pools.
Right, and a splash pad.
And a splash pad. And the money would come from Police Athletic League, which is kind of a grant and federal funds. I don't know how they're going to work it out, but somehow or other, the police department is going to fund the pools. You guys take care of it. Police Athletic League will somehow administer the program. So it's really not on budget. It's really not a regular budget. And then I guess the issue is there's just not money there for pools. I mean, they want a police class this year. There's still 30 police that are going to be hired. They're not going to do a fire class this year. I don't think that was expected, but it's an austere budget. That's the mayor's words.
Yeah, as he's mentioned a number of times. Len, your thoughts on looking at the way that breaks down?
There are a couple of things that jump out at me right away, and I think rather simply sometimes, Lee. So you guys help me out if I'm way off base here. But you know, we're taking money out of the capital improvements end of things to fund the budget. We did that last year.
14.1 million.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long can we do that before we start compromising the infrastructure of the community? We find money through the Police Athletic League to fund the pools. What are we going to do next year? And I wonder, why do we have a budget? And we always talk about a one-year budget. If you were in business, Lee, you'd be projecting your budget
out,
5, 10 years out. If we can't afford to do the pools this year, how are we going to find the money next year? We certainly aren't going to get more money from the feds. That's drying up. So shouldn't we be planning?
Well, we went through this last year, right? Similar situation with the pools, right?
Yeah.
Well, was that upon the drying up of the pool?
No. If it wasn't, it wasn't intended.
Well, it wasn't intended, but I'm more clever than I think. But I think we really should be thinking, if we can't afford the pools, and the pools are important to the community, we need time to figure out a marketing strategy. Do we go to business? Do we go to the faith-based community? Do we raise the taxes? We tried that, recreation levy, 2-3 years ago?
Council is dragged into funding these pools every year. They go through this charade. The reality is they're not heavily used.
Right.
They're used pretty heavily the first couple weeks that they're open. By the end of the summer, the kids aren't going to the pools, but we're committed to them and we're spending money to staff them and maintain them. The fact is there's no money. The city's income tax is pretty flat due to the economy not having really caught on, and the money from the state keeps on declining. George Sorrenti, the finance director, makes the point of saying the city's down $16 million in state funding from where it was in 2008.
All right, not a pretty picture, but going forward, we talked a couple of times about the raises, that the raises go ahead to the 800 AFSCME employees, 2.5%, I believe, but you've got police and fire still to come here. An 11-to-1 vote to approve those pay raises. Everybody says people don't deserve those raises. It's been a long time of pay freezes, in some cases pay cuts for people in the private sector, but Tom Winooski, on principle, I guess, said, hey, we don't have the money. 11-to-1 vote.
He's kind of the most fiscally conservative, or makes the, you think of him as the most fiscally outspoken proponent of conservatism on council. The mayor's position, council's position was that these city employees have gone for several years now without a raise. He gave them a raise. Now, supposedly they didn't get other things. They're still losing their pension pickup, where the city picked up their half of the pension as well as the city's half. How they're going to pay, it's not a huge amount of money that this additional raise is going to cost.
Right. London, quickly, and I want to get to...
I don't know, a huge amount of money. I don't know what you consider a huge amount of money, but an average worker makes $50,000 a year, 2.5%. 900 workers, we're talking well over $1 million.
That's up.
Bucks.
That's
And I'm thinking, along with Tom Winooski, he's conservative, but he does make a point. I think, why now vote on before we have the budget passed? And I can see both sides of the argument, but I'm wondering, shouldn't we see each line item first before we start?
Well, of course, politically, when you're the mayor, this is the time to do unpopular things. It gets
Got a couple
tough.
of years to work with.
Yeah. Will the voters remember it 3.5 years from now? The employees might. So politically, you take your hits early on in your term.
All right, we showed video of City Council there. We could see a changing face on City Council come come May 6th when the special election takes place. Matt Cherry against Bob Vasquez now, who says he's going to jump on in, former school board member, and Marcia Hellman. So this becomes a very interesting election on May 6th. Tom?
Right. The names keep coming out. I think there's still a few days for people to file.
27th is the deadline, I believe, right?
Right. Or 26th, but it's this week. I think we've seen all the names that are out there. Marcia Hellman, Independent. Matt Cherry, Democrat. Now he's already in the seat. He was appointed by the Democratic Party, so you got to give him an advantage, a political advantage, in having that position on council. He's the incumbent. Marcia Hellman's very
Not much time to get that name.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And in past practice, they try to feed top issues to these new guys to give them something to run on, and so we'll have to look for that from Matt Cherry. You got Marcia Hellman, Independent, well known in the community, and Bob Vasquez, very well known, but kind of a wild card.
Yeah.
He is. Well, he can be outspoken, but I don't think there's any shortage of issues in the South End. You've got
absolutely
buildings that need to come down on Reynolds Road. You got the Southwick issue, neighborhoods in decline. No shortage of issues.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating to watch going forward. And then let's turn our attention now to the auditor's office, where John Navarre, the source of controversy on a legal issue of whether he could run or not, said, "Hey, I'm going to take a leave of absence, not get paid, and run against the person who was my boss."
Right.
London, go ahead, start there.
You know, there's something. He can't, run while he's working in the auditor's office, but the incumbent can. And there's something not kosher about that, but it's the law. He has to take that leave of absence to be a legitimate candidate.
And nobody really knows why it's there. It just is. It just is. But in any case, something he didn't know about, maybe he should have known about it, but he was forced to make a choice. Do I make the run or do I keep my job? He gave up his job for 8 months. I mean, who can give up their paycheck for 8 months?
Without pay. That's,
so he's got a lot of confidence, and his wife is right behind him on this thing. He's a commercial appraiser, so he's got some good, basic knowledge about the business. He's been in the auditor's office. He's coming at it from an area of expertise.
All right, a couple of really interesting races. You've got District 2 and the Lucas County Auditor's race in the fall.
Right.
Thanks very much, guys. Have a good Sunday. We'll see you next week.